So let's welcome CA Aniket Talati.
I was the 71st president of the institute and got the privilege when ICAI and Chartered Accountancy in India entered its 75th year.
What got you into CA? Was it your father's influence?
Mobile revolution had started, you had the apps coming in, you could book a ticket on IRCTC,
Correct.
You could book a flight online, you could probably book a show for your movie on Book My Show. Gina is supposed to verify an answer. It has to be you sitting in front of the computer,
Okay.
which has a face recognition module inbuilt.
Correct.
And you will only verify the paper, so you can't outsource that work. The
Correct.
technology they get done with like a snap. And I wondered, why can't this be done more efficiently? We used to do the international conferences. Look, all my predecessors prior to me have put in all their efforts to brand the profession internationally. He's like, have you lost your mind? Why do you want to pass? I said, I'll pass the entry. And he says, no, you cannot pass.
Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee with CA. With me, your host Gina Barwani. Today on this episode, we have someone very special with us. He held the position of being the President of ICAI at the age of only 36, one of the youngest CAs to ever become the President. So let's welcome CA Aniket Talati. Let's dive deep into his journey and learn all about his story. Let's get started. Hello, sir, and welcome to the show. It's lovely having you over here. And firstly, congratulations on just completing your tenure as the President of ICAI. As the youngest president, I would say. How does it feel?
First and foremost, thank you very much for having me here. Wonderful to be in this Zoho campus with all the infrastructure which is happening and being built around. And not just physical infrastructure, I think the digital infrastructure also which Zoho is building, not just for the community but for professionals as well as people in India and outside. I think it's wonderful to be here. And yes, it's been a great opportunity for me to serve the profession of Chartered Accountancy as the President. I was the 71st President of the institute and I got the privilege when ICAI and Chartered Accountancy in India entered its 75th year.
Correct.
I served the profession as the President and it's been a wonderful experience so far.
That's nice. So I'm going to take you as a quick recap of your life journey. And so tell me all about what got you into CA? Was it your father's influence?
So look, a couple of aspects. The answer is always not just one particular reason why you do something, but I think there were two major aspects which contributed to that. Factors. One was the fact that I wasn't always that good in science, so was always bent towards commerce. And then the fact that I had a grandfather who was one of the first people to qualify in the Chartered Accountancy. In fact, growing up, I was very influenced by how he lived his life, and he was somebody who came from a very modest background.
Correct.
From a very small town called Nadiad in Gujarat, moved to Ahmedabad, got a government job at that time, and then decided that when this course was getting started, that let me try my hands at this course. And 1949, July the 1st is when the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India got established.
Correct.
The first exam was done in November of 1949 and I decided to write the paper.
Okay.
He was from an arts background, so he did Bachelor of Arts and therefore he had to give what is known now as intermediate. It was known as the first examination.
Okay.
So there were two exams, the first and the final. So he gave that exam in November 49. Results came out in January and he stood All India first. And then of course did his final where again he was a gold medalist. And then went into the profession, practiced as a chartered accountant for almost 3 decades. And then my father got into the profession. So, it was what was always happening around in the family and my own lack of interest in science which made me take up the profession of chartered accountancy. Yes.
It's nice to see how 3 generations have been continuously being chartered accountants in and right since the first exam. So, sir, you started off as a chartered accountant. Then did you get into your practice or did you get an corporate exposure?
So what I did was I did my articleship, which is a very important part of the course, and I deliberately chose to go to Mumbai.
Okay.
It was important for me to get out of the comfort zone in terms of, my schooling was in Ahmedabad. I was in college in one of the best colleges in the city and of course was doing well. But I wanted to get the exposure of working for multinational accounting firms and also the idea of getting into a bigger city and living by myself and exploring that option. So I moved to Mumbai. Again, a huge challenge moving middle of the course, not just during the middle of chartered accountancy, but middle of BCom.
Okay.
Finished my second year and then did my third year from Mumbai.
Okay.
So went there and then did my articles in Mumbai with Lovelock and Lewis, and got a wonderful opportunity to work with some of the biggest, manufacturing clients, pharmacies and pharmaceutical companies and not-for-profits, and so much exposure that I got there. And then I came back, of course, to Ahmedabad and to our practice, which was our office, which my father had started, and then yes, joined that I believe sometime in 2008-9.
That's nice. So you basically became a chartered accountant just probably say 12 or 14 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 years ago.
And in 15 years, you have probably accomplished something which not many people have accomplished, of being a president of ICAI. So does that accomplishment give you a sense of achievement?
So look, it's what I would say, all coincidental in a lot of aspects. You cannot plan these things that, when I qualified that this is the year I want to become president.
Yes.
and be done with it. I think it was just destiny that made it happen. In fact, my entry into the institute per se, like most chartered accountants, you qualify. Back then we didn't have a convocation, but you get your membership certificate,
Correct.
you get your certificate of practice, you get into your firm, and your only interaction with the institute probably is when you go for your CPE events to get updated, to maybe take a session or maybe get enriched
Correct,
by the
yeah.
knowledge of other speakers. I have distinct memory that when I was a student, and I was mentioning about the fact that when I went from Mumbai to Ahmedabad, back then, once you cleared your final exam, you had to do your GMCS,
Correct.
which was the General Management
Yes.
Communication Skills course. I think just very newly introduced. And I remember going to our branch building in Ahmedabad, and there was a huge queue. The office is on the second floor, and people spiraling down the stairs. And right up to the main gate, there were students who were waiting. And
Okay.
as soon as I went there, I stood in line, and I was wondering, what is it that's taking it so long? Of course, I mentioned the fact that my father was, in fact, he had just finished his term as president of institute. So
Okay.
the branch, the message got around that Aniket Talati was here, and of course, my father having served. So somebody from the office
Yeah.
came down and says, "Oh, no, you come up, we'll make sure your registration gets done." I said, "No, I'd rather wait in line and wait my turn." But during that whole process of waiting and going up 2 floors, I thought to myself that in 2008-9, and again, this is when the mobile evolution had started. You had the apps coming in. You could book a ticket on IRCTC.
Correct.
You could book a flight online. You could probably book a show for your movie on Book My Show. And I wondered, why can't this be done more efficiently? Of course, managed to go up, wasted a few hours just getting myself registered. And then, of course, the GMCS was a wonderful experience for me. And then I distinctly remember after that, when I got the result, and with God's grace, I cleared in the first attempt. This was the time when I applied for membership. There's a form 2, which whoever has filled for the membership would recollect. You would sign a form which would say, "I beg to apply for membership to the institute." It's a form which is, I believe, dated 60, 70 years ago, notified under the Act. And it was a physical form that you had to fill.
Okay.
I ended up filling it up, and then it asked me to attach my P1, which is now foundation, P2, which is now intermediate,
Yeah.
and final mark sheet.
Correct.
Then my GMCS records. And I couldn't understand that why a result which the institute
It has
gave
given
me,
you. Yeah.
I am certifying and getting it certified by somebody else and then submitting back to the institute. And I said, wait, this is something which, along with that episode of my registering for the GMCS and then applying for this membership, I think moved me towards saying that, can I change this and can we move the status quo? And again, I had the opportunity when my father was the president to look at the institute's website, look at the technology which was happening, and I said there are so many things which need to happen. And then, as history would have it, the branch elections came in 2009, and people were contesting for it. And then, this experience left a mark on me, and I said, wait, let me just try and get into the branch. And from branch, I ended up going to the regional council, then to the central council, and then was truly blessed that in my second term, in my very first year, I decided that let me try my hands at the election of the Vice President of the Institute. At ICAI, we don't have elections for President. It's always been the election for the Vice President, and the Vice President then becomes President. So I tried my hand at it in the 4th year of my council, and I think I was truly blessed. I got the support of my colleagues in the council and got elected as the Vice President, and then served as the President in the next year. So.
That's truly amazing. And also going and seeing how a GMCS form can be filled has led you to this date. So it's truly a full circle.
It is. So, and I still very vividly remember as soon as I got into the council in my first term, we started on a project which is today known as the self-service portal, the SSP. The form 2 that I mentioned, where you have to apply for membership,
correct.
We digitalize that process. So today, I can very proudly say that if you appear for your exam, let's say in November, we give out the results in January. We've digitalized the entire examination process. So the answer sheets earlier used to go back to Delhi, then there was of course sorting, coding, decoding and all the confidential process that the institute does. And then the answer sheets used to go to the person who was verifying the answer. We've digitalized the whole process. So today the answer sheets no longer get couriered or shipped. They are scanned and the entire verification of the examination is done online. And it's on a face recognition. So if Gina is supposed to verify an answer, it has to be you sitting in front of the computer, which has a face recognition module inbuilt. And you will only verify the paper. So you can't outsource that work. And we have a lot of controls and checks and balances to make sure that we give the student the best opportunity for his paper to get evaluated and evaluated correctly by the right person. As soon as the result is signed as a president in the morning, afternoon those results get uploaded on this self-service portal. And we have had cases where students have applied for membership and the same day, within 24 hours, we are on a membership number.
Because of the excitement that they have cleared their CA and then they can apply for their membership.
Yes, and you don't have to wait. Earlier, you had to fill up that form, get all those signatures, submit it to the institute, and then get a membership. Get it tested, and then get the membership 2 months later via post. And today, within 24 hours of your clearing the exam, we're able to give you a membership number. So I think it's a huge impact that has been made possible thanks to technology.
Your journey has been wonderful so far. So, sir, you just completed your tenure as a president. What is your next step?
That's a question I haven't even asked myself, honestly, because I haven't thought of it. After those 2 years, I'm just currently just happy to be at home and be with family and
take a breather.
Take a breather, absolutely. And then we'll see. I think I've been away from a lot of my personal responsibilities, so plan to give that a priority now. And of course to my work in my office, because I have a practice that I run. Couldn't give it time practically for the past 2 years, and even the 3 years prior when I was in the council. It's just half the time that you're around, and the balance half you're around the country, and specifically in Delhi and other places. So yeah, we'll get back to practice, looking at how the world has changed over these years, because I think post-COVID practice has changed. Post-COVID, the impact of technology on everything that we do has changed. So we'll look to see how we can then pivot and change the way we practice. So looking forward to going back.
That's nice. So I've noticed you've emphasized technology quite a bit in our conversation until now. You seem like an advocate for it. So what was your first instance with technology where, you saw the wonders it could have done?
No, look, so it's not one incident that would probably define it, but I think everything that one sees, especially with the kind of travel that I used to do even before I got in the institute, or even before I qualified as a chartered accountant, I just used to be amazed how tasks which was so mundane and used to take so much time, with technology they get done with like a snap. And I think especially when I had the opportunity to visit somewhere in the West Coast, and you look at all the technology that's getting built and how it's helping people
at the Silicon Valley.
At the Silicon Valley, exactly. And I think that's what was very clear in my mind back then, that it's going to be technology which is going to shift. And you look at India, I think, look back 15 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, you used to file a return.
Yeah.
You used to mail it in and or submit it physically. You would get a refund check. You
Correct.
used to do everything physically. You look at the stock markets because they are currently the talk of the town
You
in the
would write
financial
down
market.
in piece of paper and all of it.
Exactly, and the shares used to come in physical.
Correct, yeah.
And you look at the indirect taxes, which was sales tax, then VAT, and now GST, and how you used to have those C forms and everything else in the pre-GST era. And all of a sudden, your income tax returns are getting filed online. You're not signing them, but digitally signing them. Your refunds are not coming in checks, but are getting transferred RTGS to your bank account. Your entire accounting is changed. You no longer have those handwritten ledgers. Everything is digital. You look at the banking; it's now so much with QR codes and everything using technology. GST, I believe it's the first law which is in fact built on technology.
Definitely.
I tell people that it is, law is just 1/5 of it. 4/5 of it is technology. It's the GSTN and how you fill your returns, because if you didn't get your input right, or if you haven't given your output liability right, you're in a mess. And therefore, it's very important for you to understand technology. And I think as we go forward, with the kind of focus the government has, with the kind of, I would say, focus the entire globe has, especially looking at sustainability and going paperless, I think this digitalization is only going to increase. Position I was at the institute, I tried to put a focus on technology. I got the privilege to have a new course which was launched on 1st of July 2023, which is now the new course curriculum of the institute. And it was launched by the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, on CA Day, which is 1st of July.
Yeah.
And here too, in final, we have technology and ethics,
Correct,
which are now core parts of the curriculum.
Yeah.
So you cannot have today a subject on technology. I'm sure whoever did CA would recollect there used to be a subject specifically
Yes.
on IT. And I think as a council we said you cannot have a subject. In fact, IT is part of every subject. And therefore today if you do accounts, you need to know accounting, you need to know the cloud, you need to know technologies and ERPs. If you want to do audit, you cannot today do audit just by looking at physical vouchers. You will have to have a digital accounting and auditing mindset. So if you're, for example, auditing your top line or turnover, I cannot look at a physical invoice and just say, yes, I have audited it. If I have a turnover, I can easily look up a GSTN portal and see whether the turnover which is in the books agrees with the GST turnover which is there on the GSTN portal. My exports will have to tie into the DGFT records. My payroll cost will tie in to the PF filing. So I think it's all interlinked, and therefore accounting, auditing, taxation now. These are all subjects of final. You cannot do an income tax or GST without doing technology.
Yeah.
So what we've tried to do is imbibe technology in the course, and I think yes, I have a very firm belief that this is going to change the profession. I used to say that it's ICAI. And now AI is artificial intelligence and it's changing the shape of everything that we do. And if the next generation isn't equipped with technology, artificial intelligence, people wonder if AI will take up our jobs.
Correct.
And my only answer to that is no, AI will not, but people who know AI definitely will. So it's in our best interest to understand technology, artificial intelligence and the newer areas of technology, because they are truly shaping the face of the profession.
That's nice. So when you mentioned about AI, right, what are the security measures that someone can take, given that you have a background and your interest is in technology? So could you suggest some security measures that someone can take while using AI?
I think it's a wonderful question. What happens today is, in the era of artificial intelligence, generative AI, you have deepfake videos.
Correct.
So today somebody could use this video that you have of mine.
Exactly.
And put in words in my mouth which I never said. And for a bystander or for somebody who doesn't understand this, the nuances of it, will probably assume these are the words that I said which probably I never uttered.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to manipulate. Now this is done in videos which we all know as deepfakes.
Yeah.
It can be done in images. It can also be done in accounting and numbers and everything that you do in day-to-day life. And therefore, I say that accounting profession and chartered accountants are going to be extremely critical, because who is to say what is right and what is AI generated which may not be right, maybe manipulated, or maybe total something which is coming out of air. And therefore, I think it's the role of chartered accountants which is going to be extremely important to, in the past, as we've always said, what is true and correct and true and fair, to now say what is true, correct and real and what is artificially generated. So I think there the role of chartered accountants I personally perceive to be very important. And secondly, like you said, we will have to tread very carefully on this path of AI. Security measures, concerns, they have to be addressed. And I think initially, I think it's going to be very important to distinguish what is AI generated and what is human. Correct. Till AI is at a level that you can actually rely upon, or else it's the disaster that can happen by that is, I think, something beyond what you and me can comprehend.
Correct.
So yes, it's a huge challenge, but like I said, I see it as a huge opportunity for our profession.
Correct.
Which has been there for 75 years, talking about India. We are in the 75th year. The institute is celebrating this as 75 years of trust, or 75 saal Vishwas ke. That's the tagline that the institute has. And I think this trust which people, society, stakeholders, government, regulators have on chartered accountants and as a profession, I think will hold us in good stead to distinguish from what is true, correct, and what may be artificially generated and may not be true and correct.
Definitely. So I think rather than people being afraid of AI and taking over their jobs, and like you mentioned, they should be welcoming it, but also being cautious about the security measures. And also at the end of the day, a chartered accountant signature on the audit is much more important than anything else. So sir, one question I have you ever faced a major setback in your career where you thought like, oh, that's a turning point for me?
So look, you always have setbacks and phases. I think life can never be, in terms of a growth chart, a linear line.
Yeah.
I think it's always like a heartbeat. There has to be ups and downs, and I think that's what makes you real, keeps you grounded. So various occasions when one encounters difficulty, challenges, failure, and I think it's about how you take it. And I think I have, for one, always tried to believe that it's about looking at the positive. And I think in any situation, I've tried to train myself to look at the positive. I'll give you a small example. I go around the country and even globally to take sessions, write articles and speak about stuff. And there used to be a time when earlier you would go to a hall and you've prepared so hard, and you don't get the kind of audience that you were expecting. Like people would expect, and I don't blame the organizers, they would have tried their best, but you don't get the audience. And initially I used to feel, oh well, I prepared so much, I made these slide decks, I did all of this, and then the audience there to look at it or to appreciate or to interact with me is not there. But then somebody very wise told me once that it's not important who or how many are there on the other side. And he gave me a beautiful example that look at what is the biggest preaching in our culture. One teacher, one audience. Krishna spoke, Arjuna listened.
Yeah.
And that entire conversation is Bhagavad Gita, which we all across the globe listen to.
Correct.
So even if there is one person in the audience, I think if your message is right and it has the value that people perceive in it, that one person can take it to the world. And therefore, I think I've changed the way I look at it, and I think these challenges or anything that setback or something which is disappointing for you, I just try and look at the positive aspect of it. And then now when I go, I think if there are 5,000 people in the audience, which we saw during the World Congress, during GloPac, which we did last year, or even if it's a small crowd of maybe 5, 10, 20 people, I think the way I would connect to them or I speak with them is the same. And I think so these are how you focus and try and see the larger picture. And honestly, it's helped me a lot. So I think I've just learned to look at the positive aspect of it and forget about whatever was negative in that episode.
So talking about GloPac, what was your intention to have such an event?
Deliberated within the council of how do we showcase Indian accounting on a regular basis. We used to do the international conferences. Look, all my predecessors prior to me have put in all their efforts to brand the profession internationally. But WCOA or the World Congress was one opportunity where we said, everybody talks of WCOA. and what can be our work. If in cricket there is a World Cup which is ICC owned and happens once in 4 years, there's IPL which is an Indian property, our intellectual property, happens every year, and the whole world comes to play and the whole world watches it.
And how do we? A lot of countries have copied and imitated us.
Absolutely, you can see so many countries who've then taken that model and replicated it. So we said, can we do that same moment which happened in cricket to our profession? And that's where we brainstormed with the council and came up with Global Professional Accountants Convention, which was the GloPAC. So the inspiration, of course, like I said, was one, branding the profession, two, showcasing the world that it's the time for Indian accountants, and three, of course, World Congress, which gave us such a good name internationally to showcase the strength of ICAI as an organizer, and of course the strength of Indian Chartered Accountants as world-class accountants to the whole world.
So ICAI has just completed 75 years. How has bookkeeping and accounting evolved over the last, say, 20 years, 10 years?
I think huge change. We, as a accounting profession, I think have moved from what used to be physical way of keeping books. Then of course with the advent of computers and them becoming more popular, I think we have accounting packages which were started coming into the market and people started using it and made life so much easier. There used to be a time when, if you ask, maybe my generation didn't see it, but a generation prior to mine, if you were to ever ask them if, for example, the trial balance tallied, they would throw a party in the office saying, yeah, we actually matched and balanced the balance sheet and the trial balance. So I think it was a huge affair, and I think with computers, you didn't have to do that. Those suspense accounts got smaller and smaller, and I think the books started getting balanced automatically. So I think on the accounting and bookkeeping, we moved from those physical ledgers to the computer-based trial balance sheets, and today I think it's all online. If you look at the way the world is, everything is on the cloud. I think that's where tools like Zoho and the other companies which are building everything on the cloud has made accounting so much easier. There used to be a time when you wanted to look at your accounts, you used to go to the office, right? Because they were physical. Then computer-based accounts came in, but you still had a server access, and therefore it was either on your hard disk or on your server, and you still had to be in the office to access your accounts. And now with things like Zoho tool, which makes books available to you anywhere and on any device. It's device agnostic. So I can be sitting at home and looking at my accounts. I could be on the beach with my phone on my hand, and I can still access my invoices, my payments. And I think what companies like Zoho have done, I think, has changed how we used to perceive the typical 9-to-5 job, or how accountants used to work and bookkeepers used to work. Today, I think with the bank feeds coming in, accounting becoming so much automated, I think the chances of errors have reduced tremendously. And as I said, we used to have those suspense accounts, and today I think it's almost a thing of the past because of how precisely these tools record entries. And I think what Zoho is trying to build is not just the accounting package, but there are so many tools around which help a chartered accountant who's in practice or a firm to manage their time, to record timesheets, to see how their projects are going, and manage the entire project cycle flow. So I think times have changed in the past 25 years, and I'm only thinking of how things will be in the future. And I think great times ahead. It will add to the efficiency of chartered accountants, and it will have a huge impact on how we do our work.
And no more suspense account will be a suspense.
No more suspenses. Absolutely.
So, sir, it's been great getting to know you and getting to know your role that you played as a president and what drove you to that. Right now, I'm going to get to know the fun, quirky side of you in this next segment called Beyond the Balance Sheet. So, I'm going to use my phone quickly to refer to a few questions that we have. So, my first question would be, if you could be an accounting principal, which one would you be and why?
So, the principle that I would not like to be is accrual.
Okay.
Because there's a very old joke which says accounting is a cruel profession. And when you say accrual, it also includes cruel. So I wouldn't want to have accrual or any part of cruelty in me. But I think in terms of the principle that I would relate myself or would want to be is probably the matching concept. And,
Okay.
I like things balanced. There's
Okay.
a balance to life. It may be work life, it may be whatever that you do.
My next question is, what's the funniest mistake you've ever made on the job and how did you handle it?
Also, this is an interesting one. I can tell you, and I give this example a lot of times when I talk about accounting and how it's the same across the world, because a debit and credit is
Yeah.
always the same, or a balance sheet will always be balance sheet. But there are terminologies which you use which are very different.
Okay.
For example, in India, we use certain words in a certain way. I do a lot of work in the US, and I remember, I think it was sometime in 2009, I went to the US. I was working on an assignment, and I was auditing one of the large companies, and then I picked up that a huge piece of assets was not depreciated, and depreciated entry was not recorded. So, picked it up and then went to the person who was in charge, and I said, look, this is the asset class, this was put to use, and
It's not-
depreciation has not been booked. So he said, okay. He looked at it and says, yeah, it's a good catch. You should go. So I said, yeah, I'm going to pass the entry and make sure we have the depreciation. And he looks at me, and I'm like, yeah, don't worry, I'll pass the entry. And he's like, have you lost your mind? Why do you want to pass? I said, I'll pass the entry. And he says, no, you cannot pass. And that's when it struck me that internationally, when you say pass, it means I'm passing. So I'm going to let it go.
You're letting it go.
So if somebody, let's say you were to offer me coffee and I say I'll pass, it means you're letting it go. And when I told him that I'm going to pass the entry, he assumed that it's a material number. It's something that I caught. And he says, why do you want to pass on it?
Correct.
And that's when I realized that internationally, the right word to say is record it. And ever since, when I talk about anything that has to be recorded, I say I'll record the entry and not pass the entry, because it has a small word but has such a different meaning across the globe. So I think that's one incident which has stayed with me, and I tell people whoever work on multiple country jobs with me that it's very important that we understand the terminology that they use, because you may have done the right thing, but if you don't communicate it right, I think you can have a horrible experience. And I remember that look on his face when he kept asking me, why do you want to pass this entry? So I think it's just one such example I thought I can give you.
If you could have a superpower related to accounting, what would it be and how would you use it to save the day?
A superpower related to accounting, that's a tough one. The terminology intangible.
Okay.
I think that would be a nice quality to have. You can exist, you will have a value, but you're still not seen. And I think you are not seen, not touched, and yet have a value. I think would be something that I would love to have as a superpower quality. It's nice to disappear once in a while, not be seen, not be noticed, not be heard, and yet have value in the world.
It'll be a goodwill to have goodwill.
I like that. So yes, you will have goodwill, which also has a value. But one side of the balance sheet, which I'm sure I would like to be, is on the asset side.
That's nice. So my next question is, what's the most unusual place? So this is for way back when we had, before digitalization could happen. What's the most unusual place you've ever found a lost receipt of a financial document?
Oh, so again, I work on a lot of international audits and stuff like that. And two incidences come to mind. One which is a very funny incident where I remember I was speaking to the bookkeeper and I said it was a small number but I didn't have invoice for it. And I said, when you look at the ledger and you're just trying to understand, is there something which just pops up? And I remember it was a huge account. The amount was not material, but what intrigued me was that there was almost on a monthly basis some write-off of a fixed $5 amount on that expense. And I just spoke to the bookkeeper and I said, do you have an invoice or a backup for what this $5 is? And I think he probably didn't have an answer to it, and he says, I'll mail you the invoice.
Okay.
And 10 minutes later, I get an invoice, which is in fact not an invoice, but a $5 bill which was scanned. And he says, this is the expense. I said, I understand it's $5, but what is it for? But it was just something which I have still kept in my memory, saying, he just scanned the $5 bill and sent it across to me. And the other interesting, I think, incident was again in one of the clients where it was a huge real estate developer, and again I was flipping through the invoices, and luckily I went to his office to audit. I was a new building got constructed, and I was looking at the property, plant, equipment. Used to be fixed assets back in the day,
Yeah.
and I noticed that there was an addition to the PPE on elevators, and then there's an invoice for 5 elevators, and I said, all right. Looked at the invoices. There was a purchase order. There was a contract, commissioning, everything. And the next day when I walked up to that office, and I noticed that there were only 4 elevators.
Okay.
And then I went up and I asked the controller there, I said, look, I was doing PP yesterday, and I came up today, I saw the 4 elevators. Where is the service elevator? I couldn't see it because I assumed the 5th one would be a service elevator. He says, no, we have only 4 in this building. And then I said, then why do you have an invoice of 5 elevators? And he was shocked. And then he went back to the original plan. He says, yes, in the original plan that we had from the architect, we had 5 elevators, but we never ended up getting the 5th one. And they yet had an invoice, which they were invoiced for, and they ended up paying the money.
Oh my God.
So it was money saved for the client. More importantly, it was an experience which tells me that today, however digital you get, however virtual or work from home audits that you may do, I think it's always going to be important for you to be there, because I think I would have never caught this
if you weren't there.
Had I not gone there and questioned myself when I took the elevator. And of course, the elevator took forever to come. And that's when I said 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is the 5th one? So I think that's the example that I give a lot of my article training is, where's the 5th one? And ask that question when you see an invoice.
Yeah.
Go to that place and try and relate what is there in paper and what's there in real life.
Like the physical audit is also very much required.
It's extremely important. I think it may be inventory verification, it may be fixed asset verification. I think to see it, as they say, seeing is believing.
Correct.
And therefore, as auditors, somebody who've been taught professional skepticism to be an important part of how you think, I think seeing is definitely believing.
All right, sir. So thank you so much. That was a very fun segment. We'll just quickly go over to our next segment. On this show, we have a tradition where the previous chartered accountant that we interview would have left a question, not knowing who is going to be next. So I'll quickly read that question, and I would love for you to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah. On the previous episode, we had CA Prakash Sharma, and he's left a question. This is the 75th year of our ICAI. How would you like to see our ICAI in 2049? That is approximately like at the 100th year.
Okay, so I think a great question. I would just say that I'll break it down to 2 parts. How would I see the institute at 100 years, and how do I see the profession at 100 years? I think as an institute, I have no doubt we are already the largest accounting body. We will be by far the most dominant force in accounting in the world. I think the sheer number of students and number of members that the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India will have is going to be second to none. I think we will be leading by far. We will definitely be totally technology oriented in terms of whatever we function. We will have our physical infrastructure, which is going to be important, especially for the students to come and learn. But I think we'll be totally a technology driven and a paperless office of the institute, and yet I think producing world-class accountants for the world. So that's how I see ICAI in 25 years from now. I think a profession of chartered accountancy in 25 years is going to be totally changed. If you just look back at the previous 25 years, and the speed of change is going to be much faster in the next 25 years. So a chartered accountant office today, for example, you could not imagine without a printer, a lot of papers, files, etc. I have no doubt that in 2049 you will not have printers, you will not have paper, you will not have files. In fact, I think you probably will have desks which will not have drawers and you will not have any paper that you will say.
Correct.
You will not be looking at invoices physically. In fact, you will not be doing so much of a physical audit. I would assume that a lot of the data that you look at will be digitally available for you to verify. For example, a purchase invoice. Today you look at the invoice to get comfort whether that purchase has happened or not.
Yeah.
I think with the way GSTN and the GST network is being developed, you probably will see all invoices online. And you could just pick up a sample and you could look at the purchase that the company has made, not want the physical invoice or the copy of the invoice, but just get a login and verify from the government's portal. And look, as chartered accountants, we are always clearly understanding of the fact that third-party evidence is the strongest form.
Correct.
And therefore, if he was to give you an invoice which had the probability of getting manipulated, you today will have the option, 25 years later is when you're talking, to look at that invoice from a government portal and rely on third-party evidence. I think you will no longer be filling or filing returns. It's be pre-filled, and it'll just be a click of a button which will require your consent. So your income tax, your GST, your books, most of it will be pre-filled. AI would have played a huge role on it, and therefore what chartered accountants do today, most of it will be redundant.
Okay.
You will be not working on the compliance practice, which in the last 10 years has grown phenomenally, but you will be working on consulting, giving value additions, and telling the client that, look, this is a product which you have a higher margin in, this is an area where you can reduce cost, this is how you can be more efficient, this is how you can have a better production process, this is where risks are, and this are the kind of controls that you must have in every process of yours. And therefore, I think the role of chartered accountants 25 years from now will be very different. Yes, we have been associated as people who are finding faults, but I think 25 years from now we'll be recognized only for giving solutions.
Okay.
And I think that's one huge change that I see in the profession in 2049. So yes, the institute would have changed. The CA offices would be totally digital. You may have digital articles working in your organization for all we know in terms of artificial intelligence. Robotics would have played a humongous part in everything that we do. And yes, I think it will be the era of pre-filled returns and verification from third-party sources directly available to you online.
That's amazing, sir. So, sir, going by the tradition, can you drop a question for us for the next CA that will be coming in? So sorry. Thank you so much. All right, sir. It was lovely talking to you and having a deep conversation with you about all your achievements and your journey in CA. And
Pleasure being here.
yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
As a small token of appreciation, this is for you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.